good things for three another people, and they're doing the same. So amount of some good things in our world become more and more. So I want to start to say thank you to this cafe, Urban Space, and especially for Victoria, the organizer and administrator of this place, for support this event, and for John, who accepted this invitation as speaker, as Judah, and thank you all of you. So let's start. I'm giving the word to John. Please welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Yikes. Okay. So when Misha asked me to do this talk, I was reluctant in the beginning. I thought, oh God, what am I going to say? I love Ukraine, I love Ukrainian people, but you know, what am I going to say? I love you. How interesting is that? Then I started to think about myself in Ireland in the 70s, let's say. And Ireland at that time was very much like Ukraine now. And there are a lot of parallels between the two cultures. And for me, it's very fascinating to see. Ireland in the 70s was emerging from a time of a lot of oppression, conformity. There had been a long period where the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, had dominated, and people were very conformist in their ideas. They were quite oppressed. And then a time came when that was changing. People were stepping out of the old ways. There was a great awakening of creativity, a great awakening of intelligence, a great value on independent thinking, and fascinating things started to happen. At that time, Irish people had a very low value on what they were. So personally, for me, as an Irish boy, man, or somewhere in between, I didn't value Ireland and what it was. And one of the things that changed that for me was feedback from people from other cultures who were coming to Ireland. And they were looking around with fresh eyes, and they were saying, like, you've got something amazing here. And I started to look around and say, like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. And I looked, but when I heard their feedback, when I began to really look at Ireland in a fresh way, I realized, well, we do. And what was it that we had? We had creativity. We had great people. We had soul. Ukrainian people have that soul too. There's a sense still of the sacred, which despite the Irish had it despite all the controls of religion and the domination of the Catholic Church, they still had a sense of the sacred. And I'm not talking about being religious. I'm talking about having a place, having a value on something beyond the material. So I see that soul in Ukrainian people. I see it very strongly. And it's something that I want to feed back. That soul, that connection, that heart connection is something really precious. So that heart, that connection is being eroded, as far as I'm concerned, in the world. Technology is dismantling it, dismantling the fabric of society. And I've seen recently where some of the original people who worked on putting Facebook together, they feel guilty about what they did. And they're saying, somewhere at the back of our mind, we knew that what we were doing was going to have a huge impact on society. But we didn't really deal with it. We kept it away from ourselves, and we continued to do what we were doing. And now we can see that actually we have altered the very fabric of society. And for me, that's a huge thing. Ukraine is still in a great place with that. The technology has not controlled everybody. People still have a connection with each other, and that is a very powerful thing. And my wish is that you can keep that. And I believe that you can. I believe that there's so much of it alive in people that it can go on, and that you can deal with the technology in a way that is intelligent and that doesn't let it get into the minds of the children and take them over, and that it doesn't destroy the fabric of life, that you keep that connection with other people. I came to Ukraine without knowing what I was coming to. It was a complete surprise to me, but the minute I crossed the border into Ukraine, I could feel that connection. I was a human being in Ukraine. In a lot of Europe, I'm not a human being. I'm, a problem to a customs officer. I'm a number in an office. And that was a very different feeling. Even when I was dealing with some difficult situations here, I felt that whoever I was dealing with saw me as a human being. Now, it didn't mean that they treated me well or anything like that, but I knew that they were seeing me as a human being. And to me, that's a huge thing. And it's a big difference between what's happening in a lot of the Western world. Good, so I came to Ukraine 3 years ago now. And my first impression was very powerful. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no plan. I went to the mountains. I was traveling with a friend, and we went to Karpaty. We went up into the mountains and stayed 2 months there. And it was a very interesting experience. The Hutsul people and their tradition, it's a part of the soul of Ukraine. And it's a very precious thing, and we experienced it directly there. They gave us a house for 2 months. We were able to stay there for 2 months. Then we came down to Frankivsk. Frankivsk, the first impression that I got, I didn't fall in love with it immediately. It took a little while. In the beginning, I thought, it's a bit like Poland, and I hadn't fallen in love with Poland. But when I stayed a little bit longer then, and I started to feel it more, the longer I stayed, the more I liked it. And here I am 3 years later, and every day to me is a great adventure. One of the things that you feel when you walk out onto the street is that life is happening here. And it's not. In Ireland now, that's gone. People are in their rooms, they're on their computers. So here I am. Fascinating time since I've been here. Many, many meetings, many adventures. All the time for me, very alive. Okay, so what can I feed back to you about Ukraine? Ask me a question, or tell me something about your Ukraine. Good. Communication, that's Misha's thing. How did we communicate? It was the heart was the main thing. The language was not easy, but my friend Ella had Polish, so we could talk a little bit. Communication is changing. People are learning more languages. There's a few words of English here and there, but enough to communicate. When the will is there, when the heart is there, it's not that difficult. And I find that all the time. I'm learning a little bit of Ukrainian now, and that's a pleasure. Very beautiful language, very difficult language. The grammar is very, very difficult. Yeah, I think even for Ukrainian people. It's my guess. And I've only learned to say a few sentences with grammatically correctly. Usually it's just the word without any cases. But I did learn Człowiek bez żywota jak dym bez balkonu. You know that one? And so it's an exciting time in Ukraine. That creativity, I feel that all of us are creative beings, and that all of us can waken up a very creative mindset, and I think people in Ukraine are very close to it. One of the first words, when I come to a new country, I listen out for the words that jump out. And in Ukraine, one of the words that jumped out, or one of the phrases that jumped out very quickly was "może bути." And that has so many shades of meaning here. It's such a subtle thing. It can be beautiful. It can be like mind your own business. It could be, but it's a creative. It's a creative place. It could be place. You know, it's not the black and white thinking. and black and white thinking is dominating more and more. So I think Ukrainians have something to teach the world in terms of może być. I really do. I think you could everybody, all the Ukrainians can go to Germany, can go to America and give workshops on the concept, because it has died in many places. Things are either yes or no. The in-between, the maybe, the could be, which is quite a magical place, it's lost for many people. They don't know how to do it. And even sometimes if I get into an argument with somebody in Ukraine, I invoke the może być. And they go, oh yeah, okay. It doesn't have to be yes or no, you know. There's one of the Greek philosophers, I'm not a big fan of them, but sometimes they had some wisdom. He said the mark of an intelligent mind is to be able to entertain an idea without believing it or disbelieving it. And that's a great place. If you can hold that sense of something is possible, I don't need to believe it or disbelieve it, that's a very rich space. And it's the space where creativity comes from. Creativity is my thing. It woke up for me after a very difficult time in my life. And it was what saved me, really. I went through a very difficult time, and the only way I could navigate through it was through painting, through writing, through singing. And I see that is ready to blossom in Ukrainian people in so many different ways. Whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you have that capacity, you have that power. Good. Anyone else like to say anything?
Why did you decide to go to Ukraine? Spontaneous decision or maybe planned?
Not planned in the least bit, no. I really didn't know anything about Ukraine. The reason I started traveling was that I was living in Ireland and I had a dream one night. I woke up and the dream was very clear, time to go traveling. I didn't know what it meant. Within a few days I had an invitation from a friend in Denmark. He said, come and visit me. So I took that as the cue to move. I was in my comfort zone. I didn't particularly want to move, but it seemed that life wanted me to move on. I went to Denmark, 6 months there. Interesting contrast between Denmark and Ukraine. Denmark now is being pushed as the happiest country in the world. Having spent 6 months there, I can tell you that is not true. They are the most medicated country in the world, so that might have something to do with why they declare themselves as happy. But in my experience of them, they're not the happiest people. They're nice people. I liked them. I had a good time there, and certainly there's a lot to be learned from them. Their urban planning is probably second to none. They really work with the spaces in the cities to make them beautiful, every little space. There's no space left as if it doesn't matter. But the people very much in their comfort zone. And it's one of the things that Ukrainian people haven't had, that comfort zone. And to me, it's why there's still so much aliveness in the people. They haven't been able to settle into that groove of cushiness. Everything is looked after. In Denmark, the state looks after everything. It's an advanced form of socialism. You know, everything is looked after. They know what they're going to do till the day they die, and they know that if there's a problem, the state will look after them. Not the case here. People have to think for themselves. If you're walking down the street, you don't know that there isn't going to be a hole in front of you that you might fall into and disappear into. And that keeps people alert. It means that they're not just coasting. So after Denmark, 6 months was enough there. 6 months in Poland. The 6 months in Poland, not a very happy time for me. I didn't love Poland. I felt that the people were not open. There wasn't the same, like when I came to Ukraine, the contrast was extreme. Poland, they were polite people, they were quite nice, they're sophisticated, they're cultured, but the heart wasn't open in the same way. And 6 months was enough. I was happy to leave. Then I started to hitch around south of Poland, heard about Ukraine. Sometimes they were saying good things, sometimes not good things, but all of the things made it sound interesting to me. Even the bad. Yeah. Like people would say, they're wild there. I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. But it was a stereotype. But anyway, when I crossed the border, then that contrast, it immediately felt like a weight had been shed off my shoulders. Radically different feeling. The culture's maybe not that different in terms of their Slavic culture and all that, but even language and feeling, radically different. Good. I did, yes. When I came to Ukraine, I went to Lviv first of all. That was my first impression. Beautiful city. I didn't feel like lingering too much. Yeah, it didn't feel that different. And then I tried to go to Crimea. I didn't really know about the situation. Stopped at the border by the Russian guards, turned back, had to go, then came back to Dnipro and Zaporizhia, and that was an interesting experience. A few days there, then Frankivsk, then the mountains, and then back to Frankivsk. And since then, Chernivtsi, and a few other places, Ternopil. Yeah.
What differences have you seen all over Ukraine and in time?
Okay, in Ukraine, very different flavors. For me, very different flavors in many cities. Like Chernivtsi is just down the road, and yet very different feeling, very different food even. I remember, like, we got used to the food here, the vareniki and the borscht and all that great Ukrainian stuff. And then I asked a policeman in Chernivtsi, where can I get vareniki and borscht? He said, no. We eat pizza here. He said, we're all going to die young. Then Dnipro, very different feeling. Yeah, very interesting contrast. Very nice people, very warm people still, but completely different. My sense of the soul and the sacred is that it's not as alive there, but very, very interesting, very warm people. Good.
What are the major differences between the east of Ukraine and the west of Ukraine?
The east and the west of Ukraine. It's a big story at the moment. Yeah, what are the big differences? They're very parallel to the differences between the east of Ireland and the west of Ireland. And there are so many parallels. It's fascinating. So the east of Ireland was dominated by the Empire, England, which incidentally has red, white and blue in its flag. The east of Ukraine was dominated by the Empire, which has red, white and blue in its flag. They're the colors of royalty, and so there's that whole history of empire, domination, influence. The language was destroyed in the east of Ireland. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Dublin, which is the east of Ireland, and there everybody grows up speaking English. So it's like the people in the east of Ukraine where you grow up speaking Russian. And the west of Ireland is where the original language is, just like in Ukraine, the older language is in the west. And so there's that whole contrast of values. Language isn't just language. Language has a lot of values embedded in it. It has a lot of all kinds of things like that shape how we see things. I saw fascinating studies recently where they looked at how the language that you speak shapes how you perceive things, and how certain constructions in a language direct people's attention in a particular way. And it's very much though the same kind of contrast, east and west. It's difficult, like how do you bring all that together? That's a big question for Ukraine. How do you include all of that without being divided about it? Because it's easy to get into, us and them and all that story, which happens in the west of Ireland and the east of Ireland, in the west of Ukraine, the east of Ukraine. But that us and them story doesn't go anywhere good. How do we include everybody? How do we find a way to honor what people are, having grown up in Russian language, and now relating to us in Ukrainian, how do we deal with it? It's a big question for you, and molodets to you all, like for going with it and for exploring that story, because it's not an easy one. It's not easy in Ireland, it's not easy in Ukraine. Good.
You're talking about like a lot of challenges that you met here. But what is the main challenge for you here?
The main challenge for me? Do I have a main challenge at all? I don't know if I do. I don't know if I do. I've met some situations, like I ran out of money when I came here. But my journey in traveling is trusting life. And that's the discipline of traveling for me, is that I drop myself into situations that seem impossible and I go, okay, like you sort it out. And that discipline of meeting what seems impossible and then seeing how life solves that is the whole pilgrimage for me. For me, travel is a pilgrimage. It's not about just going somewhere and seeing things. It's about changing, the real journey is within myself. So everything sorted itself out. Suddenly I found myself making music at the Ratusha. I had enough to eat. I had some accommodation that was free for a while. Everything sorted itself out. Day by day, life provided exactly what I needed. And here I am, 3 years later. So far, so good. And no plans at all, and that's the way I live life now. Well, generously, Phenomen, I went to Phenomen Hostel and they agreed to let me stay. I did some painting, but they were very generous and let me stay. And then I had friends who I also was staying with for a while. Everything just worked. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so Poland, I suppose that's post-Soviet too, is it? Sort of, but a little bit different, yes. Yes, it is really. And it's the first one, yes. And I would definitely like to visit Belarus. Well, Belarus will be first on my list because at the moment people are my thing. And I really love the Belarus people that I met so far. To me, they're very like Ukrainian people. Of anyone, they seem to be the closest in terms of the heart and the spirit. So I would love to visit Belarus. Yes, many places, it's fascinating how your span of attention is kind of regulated by what's going on around you. When you're in Ireland, Ukraine is hardly on the map at all. It's not spoken about that much except in, headlines of, about things that are happening. But really people don't know much about life here. So I didn't know that much. But since I've come here then, other places east of here have come into view and sound very, very fascinating. Yes, Georgia, of course. I've heard many stories of people going there and how fascinating it is. Also, Azerbaijan, Armenia, ancient cultures. And the ancient part of Ukraine really fascinates me. There's a whole layer of history that has been distorted, hidden, whatever, and I've slowly started to uncover more about it, and it really shows why there's such a parallel between Ireland and Ukraine. I don't know if you know, but in New York, when the immigrants were arriving there on Ellis Island, and there were different stations for different countries to go to, Ukrainian and Irish went to the same station. And I keep on hearing these things, and I was going, oh, there we go, yeah. And after a good bit of time here, I found that there's a place in the southeast of Ukraine. It's called Kamina Mohyla, and it's a very ancient megalithic place, and it's very fascinating. And the people, the civilization that lived there were very advanced. Their art work, their petroglyphs in the rock are very advanced. They knew a lot about the stars. They knew a lot that people don't know now. I know, that's right, and so I know, it's hidden. It seems to be that the ancient history is deliberately hidden. Same story in Ireland. Many people don't know about the really powerful megalithic site and how advanced that civilization was. But the real eye-opener about that was I saw a picture of Kamina Mohila and I went, that's familiar. It was an aerial photograph. I went, that's very familiar. Where do I know that from? And then I realized it's Ireland. It's one of the megalithic sites in Ireland. It's called Douth. And I went and checked, and yes, it's exactly the same layout. And there, yes, I think so. Maybe later than the original. Maybe that civilization spread to Ireland, so maybe a bit later, but probably the same people. They say Arata, which is the name of that civilization, 20,000 years BC. One of the mother civilizations of the earth. People do not realize that. It's very important history, and it's very beautiful history. It's something very rich. Good. Anything else?
As a Westerner and American in particular,
Yeah.
don't you feel that I'm Western,
Yeah. Okay.
we are spoiling Ukraine, the old tradition like
Yes.
eating pizza,
Yes.
and could be clothes mentality.
Yes. I think that's coming, and I see the trend. And you know, at this stage, it hasn't taken over to such an extent that it has eroded the natural feeling. But I do think that it's a big possibility, and I really encourage Ukrainian people to value what they have and not to let that American culture just take over completely. Globalization is the very thing. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. No, it's true. It's globalization, but America is one of the big kind of pushers of that. And in Ireland, I saw it dramatically because I lived in Dublin. I spoke about how I grew to love Ireland. Then at a certain stage, I went to New York. I was in New York for 7.5 years. When I came back to Ireland after New York, Ireland had globalized. So I didn't come back in the 7 years that I was away, 7.5 years. I left Ireland. Ireland was very Irish. There was a great sense of the soul of Ireland, the character, you know, the creativity awakening. I'm gone for 7 years. I come back and I cannot believe what I'm seeing. It's like Dublin has become any place. It's like any city. It could be Stuttgart, it could be Dusseldorf, it could be, I don't know, a million different places. The soul of the city has gone. The way people relate to each other has changed completely. And so I get it really in the face. It was quite traumatic. It took me a long time to kind of make my peace with it and realize that that's just the way it is. You know, you have to live with it. There it is. But yes, globalization, a big one. Good. Okay.
Can you say what's the important things for foreign people know about Ukraine? What they need to know to come here?
Oh, yeah. That's a good thing, yeah. What do they need to know? They need to know about the people. They need to know about the soul of the people. They need to know about the rich culture, the feeling of life, the freedom, the sense of freedom when you walk on the street. It's huge. I mean, you could offer freedom holidays to people in many parts of the world. Like, come and have a taste of what it feels not to have that surveillance society, like looking over your shoulder all the time. If you walked down the streets in London, you know, the cameras are going, you don't feel that here. Maybe it's coming at some stage, I don't know, I hope not. But at the moment, there's still a sense of that freedom. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
So, guys, we take a 10 minutes break for refreshing, and after this, we will continue with Judah. Just like.
Check, check, check.
You have time after the presentation, yes?
Yeah.
Or you have some plans?
Yeah, I have time after the presentation. I want to talk a little bit, and then they can ask me some questions.
Okay, just.
I'll just wait for them to finish. Yeah. Okay, no problem. No. No. Yeah. Everything's okay. It's okay.
So I guess everything okay?
Yeah.
You ready?
Hello, can you hear me?
So we'll continue. Please welcome Judah.
Hi. My name is Judah. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, or Lansing, which is the capital of Michigan. So I'm just going to talk about myself, and today's topic is Ukraine in the eyes of a foreigner. So first I'll start with a nice little presentation about myself, I guess. So yeah, this is about me and my family. This is just where I'm from. As you can see, Michigan is on top there, and Lansing is the capital. So we have an upper peninsula and a lower peninsula. So that's what we know about Michigan. This is our state capital. This is what Michigan or Lansing looks like from a bird's eye view. This is just me and my family. Yeah, this is us in Las Vegas. This is my dad. My dad's a biochemist. He's originally from Nigeria, but he came to America when he was maybe, I think he told me he's 4 years old. 4 years old. Yeah. That's my mom. She's Jamaican, actually. She's Jamaican, so two different types of nationalities there. So I'm half Nigerian, half Jamaican. And she's a cardiologist, by the way. So that's my brother. He's actually studying here with me. We play basketball for Vishaliha here in Ivano-Frankivsk. Yeah, that's us being crazy. Yep, that's him. This is my sister. She's 18 years old. She's just finishing high school. She's going in to be a fashion designer. So This is my little sister. She's the smartest of all of us. She's very, very clever. She wants to be a neurosurgeon. She's just so smart. She actually plays the ukulele also. And then this is about me. I play the guitar. I like to play basketball. I'm actually a medical student here. I'm in the 3rd course here. My group is actually from Poland, so I'm the only black guy in my group. That's my teacher. And so I also like to play basketball, and I like to travel a lot. I've been to about maybe 8 or 9 countries. I'll tell you more about that later. This is just some pictures from my travels, and it's about me. Some of my Ukrainian friends, Vova, Oleg, and Nazar. This is I enjoy sightseeing. Not many people my age like to go out and see things, but I love to see different views and different parts of the world. So it's very cool for me. Yeah, this is in Manchester. Like I said, I like to travel a lot. Oh, and you can't forget my favorite part of my family, my dog. It's my favorite. Yeah. And that just concludes just a little bit about me. So I just want to, I really want to get into the topic of Ukraine in the eyes of a foreigner. So first, I just have a couple of just small subtopics. What are the biggest differences I noticed here in Ukraine? So first of all, the people and the culture. The transportation, the food, the lifestyle, the roads. The roads are completely different. Fashion, diversity, comfortability, and communication. So I'll just touch on a couple of these topics in my presentation. So first of all, I want to start with transportation. Pyzik, shositike, chesno, shositike pyzik. What is that? In America, we don't really have anything like a pyzik. Usually people take a car or even where I live, taxis are not very common. We either just use a car and stay in the traffic, or that's basically it. Buses, we don't really use buses. We don't really go by foot. We don't pішки ми не ходимо, якщо чесно. We don't walk. Which is one of the biggest differences I see here in Ukraine. So basically, the biggest thing for us is we use cars. We're a lot more. I don't want to say modern. We're just, I guess you could say lazy. Lazy. I guess you could say that. So let's get to my second point, which was okay, food. Food here. It's a lot more healthier than it is in the U.S. First of all, I'd like to say that I used to be maybe about 140 kilograms, so big toasty chuvak, very, very big guy. I used to be so big, and the food here is just a lot more healthier. I guess you could say it doesn't have that GMO or the synthetic factors in most fruits and vegetables and meat. So, like, here's a before Ukraine and after Ukraine picture. So. So that's another thing. I guess you could say it depends where, but like for example in Ivano-Frankivsk, to me fast food is not as abundant, it's not as plentiful as it is in, I don't know, I guess you could say Kyiv or Dnipropetrovsk or Lviv. So that's another reason why I really like Ukraine, because it's a lot more healthier, and like here I wrote, people are a lot more active. Like people go out more. They like to walk instead of sitting at home playing video games or watching TV. That's what I noticed, because in the U.S. everything is on this laptop or on the TV, and that's our way of having fun. But I feel like here in Ukraine, you guys go out more. You guys like to go to the club and dance, or go to the park and have a walk. That's just what I feel like happens a lot more here. And also, families seem to spend a lot more time together than as they do in the U.S. For example, you guys have dinner time, and usually your family comes and sits on the table, and you guys have dinner together. That's what I've been invited to a dinner, and my friend from Bohorochan, I was staying with him for Pascha, for Easter. And I noticed that when they're having Easter, everyone comes together and they're enjoying their time together. They're talking about how their day was, and they're talking about how was work. And I really like that about Ukraine, because you guys are really a family country. That's what I really liked. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to talk about is the people and the culture. So first thing I'd like to talk about the looks of the people. People here are a lot more skinnier. Let me put it like that. A lot more skinnier, a lot more thinner. We Americans tend to overeat. We tend to go out more. Food is not really prepared in our homes. We like to go have pizza, I guess you could say. Pizza or burgers. Yeah, that's what I really noticed. And the looks, you're a lot more aesthetic, a lot more skinnier, and you guys look a lot more healthy. Let me just say it like that, a lot more healthy. Another thing I noticed is people here in Ukraine are very serious. I noticed that, I don't know how to explain this in English, and this is my native language. You guys are a lot more serious. It's a lot more harder for me to come up to somebody and ask for directions. I feel like you guys, for example, I'm on the street and I want to ask, будь ласка, покажіть, який автобус їде в центрі. Щось таке. And I come up to a person and he has this serious face like this. So I say, okay, I'll find my own way to the center. It's a lot more, I guess you could say, scary for me to find someone to talk to. For example, when I came here from America, I got off the plane in Lviv, and the first thing I see is this big Ukrainian man with a AK-47 in his hand, and I'm like, where am I? What is this country? So that's another thing I noticed here. What I like about Ukraine is you guys are very prideful. You guys take prideful can either be a good thing or a bad thing, but in the way I want to explain it, you guys are very prideful in a good way. You guys take pride in your country. You guys take pride in everything you do. That's another thing about why you guys are maybe more serious, because you guys take more pride in yourself. Another thing I'd like to talk about is respect. You guys are very respectful. You guys know that you guys need to respect each other's space, respect each other's things, respect each other's personality. That's what I really like about Ukraine. Another thing that's very different from people here and in America is the language. Of course, the language. So as you can see, I speak Ukrainian. I speak Russian also. Mówię po polsku. I speak a little Polish. So that's what I feel like. If you're coming to Ukraine, man, you gotta at least try and learn the language, because that's how you show respect to their culture. That's how you show them that you're not just coming here to freeload off of their things. That's what I feel like. So I really forced myself to learn the language here, and it's actually been a benefit. It's actually been a big benefit for me. So that's another thing. So my next topic. So I want to talk about diversity here in Ukraine. So not many people know about diversity. So first of all, I'd like to talk about what is it like to be black in Ukraine. So as you can see, there's not many black people here unless you're a foreigner or something like that. So the way I see Ukraine is not the way maybe John will see Ukraine, or the way, for example, she sees me is not the way she'll see John, because John, his skin is white. Maybe you won't know he's Ukrainian until he opens his mouth. For me, you know I'm not Ukrainian right when you look at me. So I feel like a lot more eyes are on me. Like I said, when I first came here, people were staring, like seriously, people were staring at me, and I seriously thought there was something on my face. Like everywhere I go, I'm like, dude, what's going on? Is there something on my face? And I'm like, okay. Let me go to the bathroom and just check myself real quick. And I realized, I looked around, I was like, wait, there's no black people around here, and I'm like, okay, just calm down. So that's another thing I noticed. The diversity here is not as big, and that's why there's a lot of diversity problems. So like, I guess you could say racism, but there is racism everywhere. So you can't just say Ukraine is a racist country, but when there's racism everywhere. So I'd like to talk about where I'm from. So I'm an American. I was born in America. My parents were not really immigrants. They came to America from Nigeria and Jamaica. So I have different nationalities. So that's another thing. how do I deal with ignorance? So not many people know what ignorance means. So ignorance means not knowing, not knowing. So for example, I came here and people automatically thought I was from Nigeria or Ghana, or I've even heard Portugal or Angola. So many different things. So I like to explain to you that being black, just because I'm black doesn't mean I'm from Africa or I'm from, I don't know. I've heard different types of things. I'd like to show you a picture. This is an actual American. This is a Native American. These are the people of America. I'd like to explain to you that most white people and black people, they are immigrants from different countries, like from Ireland or from Ukraine. Like John was explaining how the Ukrainians and the Irish people were in the same line on that island, and that's why I'd like to tell you that these are the original Americans, and these when you see a white person from America, this person's either maybe a European American, or if you see a black person, this person's an African American. So this is why this is the main people of America. So next thing, communication. So let's talk about communication. What did I experience? Why was it so hard? One, because when I came here by myself. I didn't know anything here about Ukraine. I had nothing. I didn't know anything. All I knew is that Ukraine had beautiful women. That's pretty much it. And I couldn't even buy water for myself, seriously. Slava Bohu, thank God. I had a friend who spoke English and Ukrainian, and he really helped me out. I lived in the hostel on Pasichna, and I met him, and we played basketball together, and he really helped me out a lot. So what other problems do I have with communication? One, I was afraid. So coming to Ukraine, I really had to step out of my comfort zone, and I really had to try and speak to people in Ukrainian, because when I first came here, I came here 3 years ago, and I realized that I didn't really meet many people who spoke English like I do now. Like now, I'm meeting a lot more people who speak English, which is wonderful, to be honest. So I really had to step out of my comfort zone. Another problem that I face is that I didn't know anyone here, so I didn't want to really speak to anyone. I was like in a small bubble of myself, and it was just really hard for me to break that bubble and to become an extrovert and start interacting. Also, I didn't want to bother anyone because everyone looks so serious, and I just didn't want to get on. Have you ever had somebody scream to you in Russian or Ukrainian? For me, that is a nightmare. It's so tak жестко. It's just so hard, and it was just a lot of scary for me. So I didn't want to bother anyone. And yeah, another thing was, like I said, I really forced myself to talk to people, and even though maybe somebody would laugh at me, I didn't say something right. For example, I was in Silpo, and I wanted to buy some things, and I said "Я плачу," but I didn't say it right. Від слова платити. So I know that you have to put an accent somewhere. So я плачу, и я плачу. And then she goes, "Why are you crying? There's no need to cry. It's not that expensive." So so it was it was very embarrassing for me because everyone's laughing at me in the store, and so you have to really embrace these experiences. You know, when you grow up and you experience all these different things, you just look back and you just laugh at yourself, and everything's okay. It's not really that bad. So that concludes my presentation. So I just want to talk about some things else that I experienced. One thing that I really experienced here was the different parts of Ukraine. So to me, I feel like Ivano-Frankivsk is a little bit more different than Lviv. The things that I experienced in Lviv, it's a lot more, I guess you could say, to me, it's a lot more modernized. I feel like more like a tourist there than I do here. I feel like I'm an actual foreigner. Like I'm just coming here to study. I'm not a tourist. Whereas like in Lviv or Kyiv, I feel like an actual tourist. Another thing that I experienced here is the people. Okay, about the people. The the culture here is amazing. I love the culture here because in America we really don't have our own set of culture. It depends where you're from. We don't have like a standard American culture. It's either you're Irish and you have an Irish culture and you're living in America. You're Ukrainian, you have your Ukrainian culture and you live in America. You're Italian, you have your Italian culture and you live in America. So that's what it is. We don't really have our own set culture. I love the food here. The food. We don't have a national American food besides indichka or a turkey or McDonald's is our our national food, I guess you could say. What else did I experience here? Maybe you guys have any questions? Say it. Oh, yeah. I've been here for 3 years. It took me about 7 months to learn the language because I really focused on learning the language because I really wanted to interact with people here because the more okay, if I say it like this, the more languages you know, it shows the more intellect you have. For example, you're not as ignorant to certain cultures. You're not as blind to certain cultures. That's why I really forced myself to learn the language. Okay, good question. Very, very, very good question. Okay, yeah, very exactly. So I came here because one, medicine in the U.S. is very expensive. I actually got accepted to Michigan State University to study medicine, but it was just too expensive. It was $40,000 a year. As we're here in Ukraine, it's $4,000 a year. So that's a big decrease ratio in money. So I decided to come here and just do my studies, and I don't know where I want to work. I don't know if I want to work in America or England because I love England. Actually, to be honest, America is very boring for me. I've been to there's 50 states in America, and I've been to about 36 states because my mom, she's a traveling doctor, so she travels from state to state to state, working in different hospitals. And to be honest, in America, you see the same thing. You see the same people. You hear in English all the time. As we're in Ukraine, like, for example, if I want to drive to Chicago, driving to Chicago is 3 hours. If I want to go to Germany, I can take a plane, and it's 3 hours to Germany, and I can experience something completely different. I can experience a different culture, different people. So that's why I really came to Ukraine because I got to experience a lot of different cultures and a lot of different people. Good question. Because my aunt, she studied here actually, and she's now a pediatrician in England. So she told me Ivano-Frankivsk is spokojne misto, very calm city. It's not as big as Kyiv. It's not as noisy as Lviv or any big city in Ukraine. So I chose here, and I like here because transportation is not as expensive. For one, I can walk to my classes instead of having to, maybe I'm not as lazy American as I was before. I used to be so lazy. In fact, I was planning to buy a car because I didn't want to walk to classes. But now I've become used to the lifestyle here, and I begin to walk to places, and transportation is not as expensive. I begin to ride the Pizhik, yeah, and so it's not as bad, yeah.
The quality of education looking because the Ukrainians go to Europe or
Yeah.
USA?
Okay, I will say this about Ukrainian education. I feel like you guys don't. We have a phrase in America. When somebody babies someone, like they give them the answers. They try and help them. In Ukraine, I feel like everything is samostino. Everything is by ourselves, and we feel like that you have to go home, you have to study this and prepare this material very well and answer it on the class. I don't really feel like I'm being taught as. It depends which department. I don't feel like I'm being taught as much as I would be in the U.S., but I feel like I've grown as a person. I feel like I've become a better student because I begin to work by myself. I'm beginning to do everything independently. That's what I feel like. So I wouldn't say it's worse. I just feel like it's a lot different than it is in America. In America, it's a lot more funded. We have a lot more money, I guess you could say, towards education. And for example, in my microbiology class, we don't really have the most modern microscopes, but I feel like I'm still learning as much as I would in the U.S. because I'm doing everything independently. So I guess I could say that about education. Any more questions?
Would it be okay with Ukrainian diploma to work in the USA?
Yeah, the thing is, since I'm studying English for one, I can go anywhere as long as I pass their country's exam. For example, in the U.S. we have the U.S. MLE. So as long as I pass that exam, I can become a doctor in the U.S. If I want to work in England, I have to pass an exam called the PLAB, and I can work in England. So when people ask me that question, I get that question a lot actually. So I usually just have to explain the same thing. Any more questions?
Same question, like, what do you want to say to foreign people who want to come to Ukraine?
Okay. Yeah. So, what I want to tell the people who want to come to Ukraine is, at least try and research something about Ukraine. Don't come into Ukraine. I don't want to say blind. Just don't come into Ukraine thinking that the whole world revolves around your country. For example, a lot of Americans are very Americanized. They think the world revolves around America. So I don't think you should come into Ukraine thinking that the world revolves around your specific country. I came into Ukraine like seriously with an open mind. I never thought I would try borscht in my life. I never thought I would try vareniki kapusta. I didn't even know what that was. And so yeah, I just want to tell to people who want foreigners, just come here with an open mind. Try and read something about the culture. If you want, try and learn the language. I think learning the language is probably the biggest thing for me. I'm glad I actually studied Russian in the U.S., but it wasn't really serious for me. I really didn't like Russian, and then I realized like here. Russian is very similar to Ukrainian, but I rather speak Ukrainian here because I'm in Ukraine. If I was in Russia, I would speak Russian. So that's the biggest thing for me. Any other question? Say. Best Ukrainian dish? Oh, pilmani. How do you say pilmani? Pilmani. Vidbivna. I like that a lot. I like. Borscht, it was like sometimes it's good to me, sometimes it's not. It depends who makes it. My friend's babusa, his grandma, he makes the best borscht I've ever had. I like piana vishnya. I love that a lot. It's my favorite cake here, my favorite tort here. I guess that's pretty much it. I've really never tried anything besides vareniki's chornitsuya. I love that also. It's very tasty. I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah. No, I actually haven't been to Chernivtsi, but I would like to go. I heard it's a very nice city there. What else? Okay, what else do I do here in Ukraine? I actually am a musician, and I realized here in Ukraine, you guys love music. Music is a very big thing here. Ukrainian, actually, I think I read somewhere it's the second most beautiful language when it comes to music after Italian. So I really like. He's Italian. This is what I read. And I really like Okean Elzy. For some reason, his music, their music, it's a band. Their music really speaks to me. I really like the song Holodno, Tvoyi zeleni ochi. I don't know. It's very melodic, and it really suits my style of play. I play the piano, I play the guitar, and I play the ukulele, and it's just the way he plays his music. It just musically, it's just entwined with me. I just really like his music, and I really like the culture of music here. I really like how you guys dance. I really like how you guys are not afraid to show your wild side in the club and just go crazy. I really love that about Ukraine. A lot. I really like that. So that's what I like. Alcohol. Oh yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. Alcohol here, the alcohol consumption here is a lot different than it is in America. In fact, I guess you could say in Europe. In Europe, I guess you could say kids start drinking. I talked to a lot of kids. I have an English club actually in Prikatpatsky. Sometimes we have English club there, and I've talked to a lot of kids, and they say they started drinking when they were 14 with vino, with wine, and I'm like, what? You started with wine? And in the U.S., it's actually illegal. You can't drink until you're 18. But kids don't really start drinking until they're actually 17 or 18. So here, I guess you could say it's not much of a taboo to start drinking when you're young, which is totally fine. I don't judge anyone. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. So I guess alcohol is a lot different here than it is in the U.S. Yeah, because it's cheap. Yeah, because it's cheap. Any other questions? Go ahead. Oh, my next basketball game is actually we play against Hovarla. I think next week on Friday. Hovarla is the big Superliga team here in Ukraine on Mazepa Street. It's Fiskulturny. We play against them at 8 o'clock. Mazepa. Yeah, those are the Super League. Okay, there's Super League and then there's Vyšša Liga. So, yeah. I really don't have time to play with Hovarla because I'm a medical student and yeah, medicine takes up most of my time. I don't have time to look for girls or anything like that. Any other what? Yeah, I know. Ukraine has very beautiful women, but for me, I guess I don't have time for women here because for me, I like to take care of women. I like to give them gifts. I like to take them out. I like to, really show them how a man is supposed to treat a woman. That's, I guess you could say, a lot of my morals. And for me, I really don't have time to take a girl out to Desatka and have salat s kurkuyu. I don't really have time for that right now because right now I'm in third course, and third course is the most difficult course, and I soon have Krok, which I have to pass. Yeah, so I would like to have a girl, but now I don't have time. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your visit today's event, and just a reminder that next Monday we are going to have chapter 2 of this session with one of the speakers, Vibhuti, if I'm correct, from India, and I guess guys from Nigeria. Thank you a lot. Have a nice day.
Destiny lets me know how my life is gonna flow, but I'm still all alone without you. Without you.
listening to Ukrainian radio. Yes, this is Urban Space Radio.
Перед по дорозі підійдеш до мосту, стій край. Підійдеш до мосту, холод у волосі через край. Перед по дорозі підійдеш до мосту, стій край. Підійдеш до мосту, холод у волосі через край. Все наче і вірно, за мною все рівно. Будеш сумувати, менше часу спати, вулиці більш темні, недоспані очі.